Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing well and staying safe. So, my informative speech is going to be on sleeping, pretty much what sleeping is, what the process is, because there is a certain process to it, I guess, in a way. Also, I'm going to talk about some of the benefits and like why is it important to actually go to sleep, and also going to talk a little bit about what happens when you decide to, not sleep as much, or just decide to just sleep at a certain point just to regain certain lost time from it. And the reason why I decided to take on this is just because sleeping is very important, and especially for a college student, because sometimes you really don't get that chance, or at least not me, because I always procrastinate and end up doing a lot of all-nighters. But aside from that, it's also important because, well, to be honest, as an average person, you do sleep about 1/3 of your entire lifetime, and that's a lot. So I always thought, I thought it would be interesting to know a little bit on it. So let's get started. So for starters, sleep by definition in the Oxford Dictionary is considered a condition of the body and mind that typically occurs for several hours of every night, in which the nervous system is relatively inactive. The eyes are closed, postural muscles relax, and the consciousness is typically suspended. By this, it pretty much sums out to be that, well, your entire body, that being complete your senses, are kind of a little bit turned off, or at least for the time being, your mind is still pretty much active. And pretty much with that, we go to the part of the sleeping cycles, which actually explains why is it that the mind is still active in this process of being asleep. So these cycles of sleep are pretty much considered to be the stages that you go into when you are asleep. That starts off from you feeling a little bit sleepy all the way to a deep sleep that you would have. In total, there's 4 stages. Each one pretty much happens right after the other. So with that, let's start off with the first stage. So first stage happens pretty much within minutes of you kind of nodding off or feeling a little sleepy. This pretty much occurs when your brain releases some waves called the alpha and the delta waves, and pretty much from there your eye movement starts to slow down a bit. This is pretty much the introduction to sleep, so it's pretty much a very light sleep, and pretty much can be awakened very easily. This pretty much can last just a couple of minutes and can wake up very quickly. From this, you can consider it to be kind of like one of those little quick naps that you would have, so it is pretty brief. But from there, we go to stage 2. Now, stage 2 is a bit more different. So, stage 2 is still considered to be a fair light sleep. But the difference between the first and the second one is the different types of waves that are given within your brain. As the brain or wave activity increases, having this frequency called the sleep spindles, and pretty much after a little bit, these same brainwaves decide to slow down a bit. From there, if you were trying to take just a fast power nap, you would probably want to decide to wake up, as afterwards things get a little bit more interesting. So stage 3 and stage 4 are primarily usually put together primarily because they happen so quick to each other, as opposed to stage 1 and stage 2. So within that, pretty much your brain slows down the release of the delta waves into your pretty much your body, and with that, you pretty much your eye movement and your muscle movement just become very slowed down to almost to a screeching halt. From there, you start going into a deep sleep, and also when you start entering that deep sleep stage, that's when the delta waves decide to crank up again, pretty much putting you into that deep sleep kind of stage completely. And from there, your brain will actually give out signals to the rest of the body and pretty much repairing any muscles that you might have that are kind of torn, either from activity or physical activity, anything like that. regaining any strength that you might need. Also, this is where you get a boost of immune system, and also within that, in your pretty much in your brain or in your mind, that's where you actually recall most of the memories that you had from that same day and make them into a long-term thing. While these cycles or stages give us some good information and interesting information about what the human body goes through while it's falling asleep, it's important to note that most of this information is relatively new. As before the 1950s, scientists believed that once somebody would go to sleep, their body and mind would just go into a shutdown mode. But however, as time went on, they started figuring out that that's not the only thing that goes on. But nonetheless, most of this is relatively new. With that in mind, we go to a certain journal entry by Charlatan Nitton in the issue of Critical Care Nurse. She pretty much discusses the idea that pretty much when the first COVID-19 cases went into the intensive care, a lot of them did lack a lot of sleep for many various reasons. But she said that, however, because there was very little studies upon how sleep actually works in intensive care, they could have probably helped these people out. This could be just as she says that if they had a better sleep, or they were able to sleep a lot better, they would have been able to boost their immune system a lot better and faster than even with drugs and medications that they might have given them. As she pretty much says that certain people's nutritional status actually has a big role into how people sleep. She says that if somebody is malnourished or has very little, or they have deficiency in certain vitamins, it actually makes them harder for them to, and at the same time just not being able to recover sometimes. This is important because certain people will say, well, yeah, even I sometimes don't have that much time to fall asleep and only will take naps, either because of work and school or a combination of many other things. And they might say, well, usually I take the weekend off just to fall asleep and just recover all that time that I missed. Well, a study done by Christopher Dempner, professor at the University of Colorado, suggests sometimes that won't be enough and can have certain health problems. As he did a study which pretty much made two groups. One group would be able to sleep 9 hours throughout every single day, so that was considered the control group, and another group which consisted of people just being able to sleep 5 hours at the most. However, these people who had 5 hours were able to sleep as much as they wanted throughout the weekend. And at the end of the study, he was able to figure out that actually the people who only slept 5 hours every day, except the weekends, which they were able to sleep more, they pretty much had certain habits, which kind of primarily went on the idea of snacking or eating after hours, or pretty much late hours. The problem with this is that if you eat in the night, you'll end up pretty much not using that energy and pretty much just consider it fat. And if you continue on with the cycle, you'll end up having certain health problems that can lead even to type 2 diabetes. And in some rare cases, but it can happen, it can lead up to even a heart attack. So yeah, sometimes it's better not to do that. So what can we get from all this? Well, for mostly simple thing would be that, hey, sleeping is good, and getting the right amount is even better. As if you try to negate that and not sleep well enough, you'll end up having certain problems in the long run. Even if sometimes that might be a little hard to kind of do with certain schedules that we all have. But pretty much that's all I have for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope I did a good job. I'm not too sure, but hope to see some good comments, hopefully. We'll see.